Familiar theme songs in American history, definitely the Big Bang Theory of the 90s, home improvement, right? And they tackled real life situations. They actually had some phenomenal writers. A couple of them were Christians that showed up, I believe, very much in the scripts. A couple of guys that come right from the Cosby Show to Home Improvement, two of the best, I think, most positive parenting sitcoms we've ever had. But they weren't afraid to dive into real parenting struggles. And if you haven't been here in a while or you're new, back in March for about 3 weeks, we put out on every seat little red cards. And the front said, "I struggle with." And on the back, and they were small on purpose, you wrote what you struggle with. And that's what we've been dealing with. This is week 5 of that series. And one of the recurring themes was parenting, and specifically teenagers. Yeah, a little chuckle through the crowd. And that's the time of life where you begin to ask yourself the question. This kind of, I narrowed it down to, can we live together without growing apart? Is that even possible? In your home, if you have teenagers there, can we live together without growing apart? And the book that I'm going to refer to quite a bit this morning, this topic, we'll look at 3 different verses, but not quite so much looking and tearing apart Scripture as setting the tone from Scripture and getting some good advice from some experts in the field. But I wouldn't say I'm a total expert. I would say, unless there's a retired high school teacher here, I have called more teenagers by name than anyone in the room. For 47 years, count my college days, I've been at a Campus Life Club meeting every single week just about of my life. I'm still there on Tuesdays at Grand Ledge Campus Life. Dozens and dozens, probably hundreds of weekend conferences, retreats, summer camps where you sleep on hard beds without air conditioning. That's the glamorous world of Youth for Christ staff. And I still like teenagers a lot. They put a smile on my face. I had, at one point, 3 teenagers. I still like them. Usually. In some cases. We vacation together if I pay. I mean, we still hang out. It can be a good thing. So I think the answer is, can we live together without growing apart? I think it can be a yes, but it certainly can be, as you indicated in your cards, a struggle. So here's the verse. If we put one text I wanted to hang out there to think about. Psalm 127:3 says this: every single child. Because some of you want to say, well, it might be true for those 2, but you might have met my 3rd kid. No. It says, every single child is their own gift from the Lord. They are a reward from Him. Now, Carlos and Kelly today, with a 2-day-old, skipping church apparently, Lila could be in her arms and going, this is a gift from the Lord. A reward. Isn't she special? Isn't she precious? In 13 years, she'll be a teenager. And I think they'll do a great job. So she'll still have precious days, but she might have unprecious days. And I think our topic today really is, what do we do in those, they define in the book we're going to look at, 13 to 29-year-olds. I'll give some good reasons in a second. How do we live together without growing apart with them? I don't think God is surprised that you struggle with parenting. I don't think He's discouraged. He goes, what did I invent those parents for? They're messing it up. He knows that He created people with great intellect, and it's very normal in adolescence to start asking your own questions, making your own decisions, sometimes make your own mistakes. There might be tension as you move towards independence, but in some ways you're still not quite ready for that independence, and if you didn't have a parent, you'd be dead right now. So be glad for some parenting at some points. And God is not throwing His hands up. He's ready to walk through a journey. Matter of fact, we talk often around here about a relationship with Jesus driving every area of your life. And I can't think of an area that we might want to rely on Him more, or at least more quickly, than in our parenting. So I look at our series here. It's interesting. I think, forgiveness was the first week. Forgiveness, that certainly comes into parenting at times. Last week, I talked about I struggle with doubt. I think in a Christian home, doubt, processing doubt, trying to figure out where the doubt's coming from, why doubt, trying to help that journey, certainly relevant. The second week was on pride. I think pride can get hugely in the way of being a positive parent. Matter of fact, I'd like to throw the key verse up from that week. Don't be selfish. Don't try to impress others. Be humble, thinking of others as better than yourselves. Don't look out only for your own interest, but take an interest in others too. If you fall asleep later, take this line before you do. Your kids are a gift. Take an interest in them. The most powerful thing I think you can do is to genuinely take an interest in their life. And we'll actually end at that same point. 2 weeks ago, Chase preached on, I struggle with putting Jesus first. And just one line from that as I listened to it, I just jotted down, so I got to put that in the parenting sermon, so it's here. So we're so distracted by the good things, we're missing out on the best things. Enemy of the good is often the enemy of best, someone else said. And I think in parenting, it's so true. That's all great activities for my kid, but then at the end of the day, you go, why are we going so crazy? Too many activities, probably, and the good things may rob you of the best things. So, to go to Scripture once, before I just give you all their great ideas, Ephesians 6 has directions for kids and for parents. I used these in the Proverbs series about 2.5 years ago. But I'd like you to read them for me. Let's just take a look at some basic foundational truths we know. First, for kids, from Ephesians 6. Why don't you read this one for me? It's long. I got to be careful not to break into the sermon on this passage. It's not the passage today. But 2 really good words of advice for kids. And I say kids, especially teenagers, young adults. Obey your parents. Honor your parents. Those 2 things will never go wrong for you. Obey, I like to say this to teenagers, you have all the power. You don't think so. You think my parents are always bossing me around. They have all the power. They're always giving me all the rules, always telling me what to do, always nagging me when I don't. Guess what? You have all the power. All you have to do is do what they ask you the first time. And say, hey, clean up your room. And admit it. To our teenagers, how many of you, your room is disgusting? Yeah, thanks for the honesty. Usually, it's probably 7.4 times parents nag at increasing levels. And you're mad because you're disobeying. They're nagging you. That's all gone if the first time you go, oh, yeah, thanks for the reminder, and you clean your room. You go walking out the door, go somewhere, and your mom goes, hey, did you get your room cleaned? Yep, I even washed the windows, changed my sheets, and swept the floor. We're dreaming, okay? But what would your mom, the jaw will go all the way to the floor. And she'd probably go, here, take the Camaro. I mean, it would be good. It would be good. You have the power. First time obedience. But it also says honor or respect, if you go back to Hebrew. And I love the combination. One commentary says this word honor is a combination of affection and awe. You should look at your parents sometimes and go, wow, you're amazing. When you think of all they've done. That should be right. That should be one of our first thoughts. Yeah, there's affection, love, but absolute awe at how they've always been there for you. I like if Steph Curry walked in the door right now. I'm a Warriors fan. And he has the week off. I thought he might come to second service. He didn't make it. If he would have today, he would have caused quite a distraction. Steph Curry's here. And everybody would try to be cool and bounce basketballs and stuff. He plays basketball, if you don't know that. That immediate response of is that word, respect or honor, in Scripture. And that would put a whole lot positive into your parent-teen relationship, whether you're 13 or 29. If you start with that, your world would change. Now, fathers, and it means parents, but fathers, especially in this culture, especially, Whereas mothers might tend to be nurturing, fathers can tend to be exasperating. So read this verse for me. I think it's the NIV that says exasperating, but provoking them to anger, edging them on. We can do that, can't we, parents? We know how to push the buttons to get a response. That response is not usually helpful for a positive relationship or to help you grow together without living, or live together without growing apart. There's two words here as well, though. Instruction. I have different translations. Discipline in NLT. Discipline and instruction. And this one's not so much about, spanking, shaping them up. It's about teaching the kind of truth in instruction with the direction of how to put it into practice. The discipline of obeying God and doing what God calls us to do. The Message captures it perfectly, I think, the translation. It says, take them by the hand and lead them in the way of the master. Take them by the hand and lead them in the way of the master. So that's probably children. But that role can continue through adolescence and young adulthood if that's the way you've always had the connection. That, hey, I'm on your team. Let's go. Let's figure this out. Let's do what's best for you. Old King James said nurture, to actually encourage along. What a powerful word picture. Take them by the hand and lead them in the way of the master. So as we do that, I think that sets up the title to this book so well, Growing With. Growing With. I'm only that far through it, the first section, and that's kind of the heart of what we're talking about today. But I highly recommend it. I think they have some really good insight. They are both professors at Fuller Theological Seminary, both been involved in youth ministry. Kara Powell's the first one. She's done a lot of Youth for Christ stuff for us in the past. And a very organized, slightly academic, but especially those like the details behind a lot of stats. I'll share a few. But I think it reflects how important Henry and Cloud in their book, Raising Great Kids, say it this way. Your child needs to see that you are a better parent to him by virtue of being connected to God. You don't have all the answers, but God does. This is how they learn that good things happen when people are around God. So with God at the center, how do we grow with our kids? The definition the authors give in the book is this. Growing with parenting is a mutual journey of intentional growth for both ourselves and our children that trusts God to transform us all. Transform us all. Anyone here no longer need any transforming because you are perfect? Oh, just one, okay? We'll talk after. No, we're all on the same journey. Now, parenting has its own special connection as parent and child. But I love the focus that it is intentional growth for both ourselves and our children. And when we look at the chapter on intentional growth, they kind of expand that. I just grabbed three things that stood out to me. Growing with parenting works towards solutions rather than only identifying problems. Just chew on that for a second. Is your default in parenting pointing out the problems because you need to help them? It may be more beneficial to first work towards solving or working towards solutions. What could we do about this? So if there are 7 pair of dirty underwear in the bathroom floor every single day of your life, and they're not yours, they're your teenagers, maybe instead of going, pick up your underwear, would you please pick up your underwear? And you just get tired of saying that. Maybe you say, what can we do about all the underwear? And then make a list. You go, well, we could buy 3,000 pair and just throw them away every day. That's an option. A little expensive. But brainstorm together and see if there's a solution that they might own because they helped come up with it. This is what they say. And maybe sometimes the underwear go away. Maybe they get a cookie when they pick up their underwear. I don't know. Probably depends on your kid. Sugar cookie would work for me. Growing with parenting seeks new resources instead of defaulting to old patterns. Really easy to come up with how my 13, 14, 15, 16-year-old responds to me as I talk with them. It might be different when they're 23, 24, 25. And so maybe you have to ask the question, what should we be doing differently to help us on this journey? And growing with parenting catches our kids doing things right rather than only naming the things they do wrong. It's kind of related to the first one. They kind of catch the difference. What is your default point? Pointing out the wrong? Or literally, I love the phrase, catching them doing something right. Hey, I saw you. That was really cool. Made me really proud. It's basic in marriage counseling as well. If you think something positive, say it. And sometimes we default to, we assume that they're going to do all the good things, and we just point out the negatives. So catch our kids doing right rather than only naming the things they do wrong. It could be a huge game changer. There are a couple challenges they point out. It's a whole chapter. Again, I just narrowed it down to 3. This kind of is just the cliff notes. I hope it's what's or whistles enough that, especially if you're in the midst of parenting young adults, you might grab the book. But I like this one. One huge challenge is just fighting the reality that there's more time-demanding activities and less family time together. It's the number one struggle of teens in surveys everywhere, including Campus Life this last year. What's the one thing that causes the most stress? My schedule. Too much on it, and yet what do we do? That's a great opportunity. You should do that. We add another thing, and another thing, and another thing, until we literally, authors say, don't know how to hang out together anymore. And if you got your family of 4 at a restaurant for a second, thinking, let's just get some family time together. If you're at a restaurant today, look around, the average family of 4, what are they doing 99% of the time? Isn't that crazy? Hey, good quality family time together. Oh, Steph Curry got 37. Wow. Went to dinner just, I think, Thursday night with son Corey, girlfriend Katie. We ordered. I kind of chuckled because I've been working on this sermon, and Corey's looking at some truck thing. That's what he always does. He has a Ford. He needs a change. And Patsy's doing some photo thing. So I said, well, I guess Katie and I are going to have a conversation, and the rest of you guys stay on your phones. It is the real world, and that busyness is a huge challenge. Second challenge, 28, they say, and they don't just say this. This is kind of common now. 28 is the new 18. A lot of reasons for it. 2/3 of kids now enter college, highest of any generation. But only 28% have a bachelor's degree by age 25. Used to be automatic by 22, right? 4 years out, degree. 22, you had your job. Now at 25, they don't even have the degree, let alone the job. They marry 5 years later than 50 years ago when I was a kid. I'm really old. They have 2 kids instead of 3.5. They feel behind in their life goals and see little hope of catching up, is a phrase that really stuck out to me. They haven't anything bad, but this culture is a little different as they've chipped away. Oh, I changed my major. Oh, I changed my major. Oh, by the way, I changed my major. And all the part-time jobs to try to support the more expensive college. And here they are, 28's the new 18, barely ready for adulthood when they're almost 30. And I love that their phrase is genius. They say 28's the new 18, but 30 cannot be the new 20. We've got to find a way to have emerging adults be adults before they get there, or they look at a whole decade that was supposed to prepare them for adulthood, and it hasn't done that. And some of the traditional markers of whether it's marriage, houses, jobs, careers, retirement, just haven't even come into play in their lives yet. And it's a huge challenge. 50% live back at home again. Here's an interesting stat, though. This will make you smile, good or bad, Charlie. 50% are back home. 70% are perfectly happy with their home relationships. So parents, I take that as a positive. Your kids don't hate you. They don't hate being there. But we do know that should end at some point. Thirdly, many adults have emerging adults who are not their children in their home. I think that's why this message is much more appropriate for everybody. I'm not just talking to parents, teenagers today. Many have opportunities to bring someone into their home to parent them that wasn't their kid. It's a huge opportunity, especially when you realize probably the very fact that that's the scenario that they come to you in, they may even have more needs for positive parenting in their life. And you may even do that indirectly. They're not in your home, but they're in your life. It's the next door neighbor kid. It's a kid that lets your dog out when you're on vacation. You have people who, different perspective, if you look at, can I pour into their life and make a difference? I bet you can, because they're really looking for that. So the journey they talk about is withing parenting, faithing parenting as they get into the next age group, and what's the third one? Just one way. Adulting as kids grow up in that last phase. So withing, faithing, adulting, the main of all verbs. We only have time for withing today because it is that adolescence age group. So here's just a couple snapshot slides, and I'll have some practical conclusions. First, ages 13 to 18, the writers call those adolescents learners. It says they're changing at light speed, especially in our world today. Their life changes so fast. They're learning how to use their increased intellectual capabilities, which means they want to argue about everything all the time. They see the imperfections in other people and aren't afraid to point them out, including you, parents. They're learning how to live in their physically changing bodies in a world that's very appearance-based acceptance. It's tough. They're learning how to manage their heightened emotional awareness. That means they're really moody and unpredictable. I love how these positive little phrases. They're learning how to navigate a broadening circle of relationships embedded with expectations. And they don't just have a mom and a dad, if they have both. They have a teacher, a principal, a coach, a boss, goes on and on and on. And they all have their expectations. When you add them all up, it's back to that, I'm too busy, too much to do. Lastly, they're learning how to start living out their faith as their own. That can be a real challenge again in our culture. That's where a positive church, where maybe teenagers actually come by choice. That's you guys. They need that support Christianity-wise that hopefully helps them realize faith does make sense. I have friends. They said they hate church. I think I'd like my church. Can I say that out loud? You can't. Everybody say, I like my church. See, you can say it. And come back next week, and maybe parenting that mattered to you, but next week's topic does. And I guarantee you, over time, this book stands up and will direct your life like nothing else. But they do figure out as learners that that belief isn't as simple maybe as they thought in the children's worship program. That doubt can be real, the sermon last week. And that sometimes it takes time in our journey to figure all this out. We want to be a church that says loudly, that's okay. You're using your brain. That's a good thing. At least you have one. Explorers on the next phase. They say ages 18 to 23. This kind of captures college, although, again, we just said the vast majority don't have a degree by the end of that time. These explorers are sorting through lots of options. Explorers, they're exploring career paths through schooling, internships, travel, military service, new jobs, or gap year projects. There's so many different things 18-year-olds have the option for now. They're exploring their own interests, gifts, and talents. Maybe you always went camping, but they really wanted to scuba dive. And they say, hey, I'm flying to Australia and swimming with sharks. And you're going, what? But they're kind of exploring what's interesting to them. They adopt dogs or do weird things like that. Exploring what they desire in deeper, more romantic relationships. Exploring new ways to relate to their parents. Here's an interesting point. This age group, 18 to 23, according to their research, your late teen, young adult has a better relationship with you, has a richer conversation. I remember him in the first service. Relationships improve, richer conversations. Oh, more appreciative. You may not feel that often, but your kid looks at you and goes, I appreciate you so much, Mom. At least that's what they're feeling in research. They're lastly exploring what they believe. Again, the next journey of the learners putting together, figuring this belief thing is not simple. But now it's probably exploring more, well, my sociology professor said, or my roommate grew up fill in the blank faith, and they said, and they're trying to put all this together. Not easy. Lastly, we have the focusers. And that's the panic moment of, I don't have my degree. What am I going to do now? So they're back to school for something different, or they're back to finish it up. They get an internship to help them get through a career. There's a lot of options again. But they're landing on the path that best fits. And again, deciding, Okay, 28 may be the new 18, but I don't want 30 to be my 20. I gotta make a decision here. So they're focusing on their careers, focusing on relationships. There's fewer relationships around. In high school, you have high school friends. In college, you have college friends. Out of college, especially if you're with a small company with an old boss in a little neighborhood or a small family, I mean, there is a real loss of, I just want someone to like me, which is why I'm so excited about having a young adult ministry here at River's Edge, a place where someone can know somebody in the same phase of life. They're focusing on their beliefs and trying to decide if what I decided in my last little phase is really working for me. And they're focusing, probably many of them, on a reset, where it's time to end 7 different part-time jobs I'm working, finish that degree, try to really get a job. Maybe my 3rd girlfriend will like me enough, or all those kind of things that we all go through. So for parents in these phases, I'll run back through these phases one more time. Good questions to ask, or to ask yourself. For learners, your role is really teaching. Teenagers need teaching. They might act like they don't need anything, but they don't have all the answers. So as learners, we say, how can I affirm growth in my child? Back to that, notice the positive things first. Again, especially if there's been tension in a relationship with an emerging adult of any of these ages, what percentage of your last 3 conversations were positive? Maybe start there and make a difference. What are new ways to connect with my child? Maybe I took Corey to Denny's 100 times when he was a little kid, but he doesn't think it's good food anymore. We have to go to Cracker Barrel for an omelet or something. But what works for them for where they are now? How can I ask their opinions on decisions they make? So what are you really thinking? Thinking genuine interest. For explorers, that next college-age group, whole new range of opportunity, but it's much more of a parenting guiding role. You're still figuratively taking them by the hand and leading them, but probably not literally. It's more of a guiding role as you think through issues with them. You ask, what can I help them see about the current situation? Did you really think about, and again, I'm not attacking, pointing out that they did it wrong. I'm just trying to catch up with what they're thinking. So what are you guys thinking? What can I do to encourage them to be on their own? Probably you really could pick your own underwear up now. You're 24. I'm sorry, 23 in that case. When have I not been there for my child? I love that point. There are times when you look back, I always say, if I had that to do again, I'd do it a little differently. And maybe just that thought means you should communicate that. And say, hey, kid, if I had to do it over again, I would have done it differently. Maybe into the point of saying, so forgive me, I'm trying to do better. What could I do differently? Completely different posture. Then lastly, with the focusers, those late 20s, again, you're dealing with some of the biggest frustrations and some of the biggest challenges as they try to really be ready for life. You're more of a resourcing, which is not just money. It may take that sometimes, and we kind of chuckle with that probably, especially with that 50% living in your basement. But you're asking, how can I support their decisions no matter what? Sometimes you don't agree with where they're at. How do I come alongside, ask the right questions to figure out where they are at? When can I be too controlling or too aloof? The average 28-year-old probably doesn't need a lot of control. But we can get so fed up. Okay, you've got to do it this way or you're out. But the flip side of that same coin is too aloof. I told you that would happen. You screw up your own life. That's your mess. That's too aloof. That's not parenting. So you have a great opportunity to resource. What encouragement can I give them? Again, that's back to looking for the right things first. And that could be the kid next door. That could be your babysitter. Hey, I heard you. A positive word might be the only positive word they got today. So here's your 3 mantras to walk out the door with from this book. 3 mantras of growing with parents. Don't have time to comment much, so here, maybe take a snapshot if it really strikes you. Think about it later. Today, I attempt to be at the right place at the right time. Maybe it's mostly about motivation, initiative to re-engage with a student, a kid that you've been distanced from. Take that baby step, which is the next step. Today, I will allow grace to give me courage to take the next faithful step. Might just be a baby step. It could be as simple as, you know what? I know you're 27, but I heard a sermon on parenting today. I don't feel we're as close as we were last year. What can I do to make that better? Just start the conversation. Take that next step and really believe that the Christian reality of grace, they write, reminds us that every day is a new beginning, filled with potential to learn and grow, no matter what the past. Can't make up for lost time, but you can stop losing it. Take a baby step. And thirdly, today I have what it takes to be the best parent for my kid. They write, remember that you are the right parent for your child, and no one loves your child more than you do. You have what it takes to be the best parent for your kid. Read those 3 mantras. Let's see if they really hit home if you say them out loud. Go for it. Number 1. Number 2. Number 3. And I'm happy to say with this whole 13 to 29-year-old thing, Kelsey just turned 30. So my kids are 30, 32, and 34, so I'm off the hook. They are on there. No. It never ends, and the potential for growing with parenting into the 30s. And plus, I think it's a greater opportunity than ever before. We do live in a complex world. So 5 things out the door. Again, take a picture because I don't have time to talk about them. Number 1, this is when living parenting, they say, really gains traction. That kind of just grabbed my attention. Number 1, say these 3 warm words. Tell me more. I love it. Hey, I think I'm going to do this. Tell me more. Instead of, I don't think you should. You haven't even heard why they're doing it yet. Tell me more. Great wisdom. Number 2, ask, if you could change anything about our relationship, what would it be? That could be interesting in some settings. Number 3, deal with your own busyness and stress. Perhaps the greatest issue facing your parenting is you're too busy to parent well. With 8 to 18-year-olds in a survey, the number 1 wish for their parents is that they were less busy and stressed. That they see that in us. Number 4, fight for your kids, not with your kids. Again, that's back to looking for the opportunities to affirm what's good before you pick on what's wrong. And you're trying to help them make right decisions while keeping a right relationship with them. Then lastly, I love this one. Use a Genesis 1 lens, not a Genesis 3 lens. What does that mean? Genesis 1, we're created in God's image. We're Lila. Genesis 3, they had sinned. They heard Jesus coming. They went and hid in the garden and covered themselves with fig leaves. That's called shame. And somehow parenting's got to stop short of that, because God corrected them that. He still expressed his love when he did find them. Guilt is when we know we did something wrong. But shame is when we feel bad about who we are. Not guilt's feeling bad about what we did. Shame is feeling bad about who we are. And God loves your kid, and you do too. And their conclusion says this: take comfort in knowing that just as God is continuing to transform our children, he's transforming us too. Just as they seek to be with our kids, just as we seek to be with our kids, Jesus is Emmanuel. That means God is with us. And he's with us in our family highs and lows and everything in between. So let's trust him for that today. And if you're struggling with parenting, join the crowd. But let's seek God's direction in helping us be a withing kind of parent wherever our kids are on that journey. I'll just close in prayer. And I just like to pause. If you're thinking specifically of a kid, of a situation, would you just ask God to give you the courage, to give you the insight of what maybe baby step you could take this week, maybe even over a holiday weekend. Say, God, help me. Father, Scripture says, cast our cares on you because you care. We really truly believe that today, Father, and know that our kids would be at the top of your care list. So as we assess our own journey and walk with you, Lord, may we indeed follow you as closely as possible, deal with the busyness and stress in our own life so we can be available to parent our kids regardless of where they are on the journey. Be with kids, maybe even some that are here that may be discouraged where they are on the journey. Help them see people around them that are loving them where they're at, accepting them for who they are. And just lastly, Lord, I pray as a church, River's Edge would always make home for kids of all ages. In Jesus' name.